Okay, we're here today, Tuesday, December 14th for Community Design Review Committee for the Airmont Shul, 16 Murray Drive for residential place of assembly for an amended site plan to add a mikvah as an accessory use. Okay, and we have Rachel Baris, the applicant's engineer, and Kalman Herchkovitz, the applicant's representative from Construction Expediting.
So we are back here for base Medrash of Airmont, which is 16 Murray Drive. When we were before you the last time, there was, I'd say like the biggest question was bulk table. So now we're back to showing the residential place of worship bulk. I think that was the biggest question. And then kind of like trying to make it clearer that the addition is for the mikvah. So I included now like more of the breakdown of the square footage of the house of worship, the square footage of the rabbi's residence, the square footage of the mikvah, and the parking calculation. So there was previously a parking waiver that was granted by the board.
Mm-hmm.
The additional square footage for the house of worship means that the difference between the required parking and the provided is greater. So now we're listing that we would need a parking variance. The answer being that people aren't coming for the mikvah specifically. It's not just for a mikvah use. It's people are coming for the shul and using the mikvah. My understanding is so the women's mikvah is different than this. This isn't the women's mikvah that's separate.
Yeah.
So that's the one that they go to for the use of the mikvah, and that one's not affiliated with the house of worship. This one sounds more like, and Kalman, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds more like a daily visit.
Exactly. Yes, it's part of the morning services.
Okay.
You go to the mikvah before, and it's not like somebody drives to the mikvah on occasion,
Yeah.
like occasionally.
Where like the women's mikvah, they're going for the use of the mikvah, and that's their destination. This is like they're not coming for the mikvah, they're just already there for services. It's the men, and then they would take a dip in the mikvah. So while the parking calculation goes up, the actual parking demand doesn't go up. But it does require now a parking variance. And I tried to include information on the bulk table. So let me know if there's questions, comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't have any measurements on the existing shul and the square footage of that, because the parking calculation is based on 2 spaces for every resident or every parishioner. Well, I mean, but we need to know the square footage so we can calculate how many can fit in that room.
Oh, okay. So on the plan, on the first page of the amended site plan, I have, let me see
I
if I
see
can
it.
share this.
You want me to share the screen?
1,800 square feet. I got it.
So it's 1,800 is the existing house of worship. And then the rabbi's residence existing was 3,795. The proposed floor area, the mikvah, was 750. So the total square footage of the residential house of worship and the mikvah was 2,550.
Right. All
So
I need
then
to know is the assembly area. The assembly area where they're actually praying is what we're going to calculate off as the number of
Parking spaces?
yes, it's 2 per person that'll fit in there. So I know that's calculated out as the study, the entry, the bathroom. I don't know. Do you know approximately how many square feet that is? I could reduce it from the 1,800.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that with the.
Because mainly I'm looking at the main room and what says existing family room used by shul. So I need to know the square footage of those 2 rooms, because I'm guessing one's the men's section, one's the women's section, and I need to do a head count calculation.
So then the mikvah doesn't have a calculation for it?
It does, but it's not an assembly area, so it doesn't count as the main prayer area is what we calculate out as the 2 spaces per per prayer, per person, 2 spaces per. That's the other part of the calculation that's missing. I see you have 13 spaces based on the square footage, but we need to know how many people are there actually praying or the occupancy of the prayer room.
Okay, so like take the whatever 2550, deduct out the square footage of the prayer room.
I'd rather take the 1,800 and deduct out the hallway and bathroom. And that way it should leave me with just the prayer room and the women's section.
Well, so if I
Amazing,
have
that's
the
cool.
section of that, like that, I just take that out of the calculation. So the hallway, the bathrooms and the mikvah is one.
Hang on,
For
if you're
200?
calculating the 200 square foot, that's the entire house of worship, everything that goes with it, which would be the hallways, the bathrooms, the mikvah, all of it.
Yeah,
That will
so,
give you that number. But the number for the 2 people per space, the 2 people number comes from the occupancy of the prayer room.
yeah, but I'm just saying like, so I deduct that out. What's counted for the 2 people, 1 space for 2 people is not also 1 for 200.
Correct? No.
Okay. Okay. You don't have to double count it. It's only one.
Correct. And it's whichever one is higher is the one you have to go with.
Okay.
That's the way the code is written. It's either or, whichever one's higher.
Okay.
So I'm
So I'll have to
guessing,
get that that area. I don't have
well,
that.
I'm guessing based on what we're looking here, the existing shul area is pretty big. I mean, if it's 1,500 square feet, you're looking at 100 people. Because the square footage is 15 square feet per person with tables and chairs, according to the fire code. So the number is going to be much higher because if it's 1 space per 2 people, you're going to need 50 spaces.
Yeah,
So
but
is
Lou,
that a
the-
new parking calculation? Because that's not how they did it when they had their original approval.
correct, that hasn't increased.
So, because that's the area that hasn't increased, and on the plan that was approved, that one says the residence needs 2 spaces, and then the total gross square footage is 1,800 square feet divided by 200 square feet comes to 9 parking spaces.
So you based it entirely on the square footage. When was
That's what the
approval
original
done?
one was done, and so that's why I just took the mikvahs. I just used the same 200.
Do we know when the original one was approved?
It's signed by the chairman, September 2010. It was approved in March of 2010, it says.
It just says in the old resolution, parking waivers approved from required 11 to 9 spaces. I'm looking at the resolution from March 25th, 2010. It was submitted in the last submission. From last
How
month.
many square feet was that based on? Or how was it calculated?
So this was the old one that was signed for filing, and this had the breakdown of 1,800 square feet for the local house of worship. This was the square footage for the rabbi's residence.
How many square feet did it show for that? I can't really read that.
So the rabbi was, I guess, was like 3369 at the time. They added 427 square feet to the rabbi's residence. That hasn't, we're not touching that. The only thing they're adding is a deck. So it doesn't change their square footage. And then the parking calculation says the residence requires 2 spaces and the total gross square footage is 1,800 square feet, which comes from here, the total of the residential house of worship divided by 200 square feet. So they needed 9 parking spaces for that. So the combined is 2 spaces for the residents plus 9 for the house of worship. So total they needed 11. And then under the bulk table, there was also that note that says, please note planning board waiver. This says requested for the 18.2% reduction in parking and the 2 curb cuts, which was then granted.
Lou,
Yeah,
you were around for this application, weren't you?
in 2010, no,
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
2016 I started.
You started in 16. I
Oh
started.
boy, am I off. Okay.
This was an Ian Smith.
Yeah, on the resolution, it was Ian, Stu Turner, Mancuso. You're Dan, you're on here. You were here.
Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't have calculated it the way that it was calculated in 2010? Is that what I'm hearing?
I have to check the dates on when the parking calculation code was written for houses of worship or assembly areas, but it's saying one space for every 3 seats, or 200 square feet, whichever is greater.
And now it reads?
That's exactly how it reads now. I have to see what date that was actually put into effect.
Now, if we're not changing that part of the application, is that still in question? So like, that's what would we keep the initial calculation and we're only requesting the parking for the additional square footage? Which that would still be the 1 per 200.
I muted Lou for a minute because he was talking to somebody.
Okay.
Well, I think maybe, I mean,
What
Would-
does the map note? Proposed total floor area residential house of worship and accessory uses, including mikvah, 2,550 square feet, actually mean? Like, is that just the size of the mikvah? Or are there other expansions to the house of worship?
So the house of
existing
worship, the existing house of worship is 1,800 square feet based on the information that was provided to me. The existing rabbi's residence is 3,795 square feet. The proposed mikvah is 750 square feet. So the 1,800
It's
Plus the
1,800 plus the
750.
750.
gets you to the 2,550. So that's the house of worship and any of the accessory uses, in this case, the mikvah. So the total.
Why don't we make that more clear? Because we're giving the total, but we're not giving the breakdown.
Well, I list here
No, I know
1,800,
I know, but
750.
it doesn't.
Do you want me to
it
write
doesn't-
here in this sentence, 1,800 plus 750
Yes.
equals 2,550?
Yes, so it's
Yeah.
clear
Okay.
on the map note how you got to that square footage, exactly.
Okay. And then I can in the parking calculation, if we're okay with it, I can do existing parking.
Plus the
super-
way you word it, you're saying proposed total floor area residential house of worship and accessory uses, including mikvah. The way that that's worded, I would interpret that as you're adding to the residential house of worship.
Well, I'm adding 750 square feet, but the use
Not-
of that 750
to-
square feet is
right.
mikvah.
But I understand, but that's not clear from the note.
Okay.
I don't think. You're not. What we need is like a clear explanation okay, we got an existing 1,800 square feet for the residential house of worship. Now we're proposing to add an additional 750 square feet for the external mikvah. That totals out to 2,550 square feet of residential house of worship use and the external mikvah. But didn't you also say there's an internal mikvah here?
There's only one mikvah.
Okay.
And it's all indoors.
And your parking calculation has a typo. You got to change the C to a G. If you're making changes, just an FYI.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
Well, if the part, and then I guess this is a question for Lou. So can I, because the original application was, the parking was calculated one way that got to a required 11 spaces, can I show the calculation of like what parking would be required for this additional 750 square feet floor area? And I can break it out line by line that this was what was required for this. This is what was required per prior application for this use. And the new requirement is 1 space per 200 square feet times 750 square feet. And it's for the mikvah. Now I was trying to list it as like, it's an accessory use, including the mikvah, because I don't want anybody to think that the mikvah is another accessory use, because we had kind of like talked about the mikvah is part of the house of worship. It's not like another thing. I don't know if it's not clear. I need you to tell me what to make clearer, because I want to make it clear here so that it's easier when we get to the next level.
That's a legal question that I've been trying to address for quite a while, because the residential house of worship doesn't state anything about a mikvah. So it's usually considered an accessory to a regular house. So the house of worship is already an accessory to a regular house. So it would be an accessory to an accessory.
This was brought up at the last CDRC meeting, and I believe they said it's okay. Let me just go back to my notes, but it was discussed at the last meeting.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a similar example with regard
So,
to
unfortunately,
accessory to accessory.
I think a lot of the shuls have mikvahs. It's just not listed as a separate line item in the normal application, because it's usually, a lot of them are doing it at the time of construction.
Correct.
And this is now, we're coming back, and we're trying to acknowledge what this addition is for.
Like, as we
Now,
don't
how
list
many-
what the,
Does this
Yeah.
have a mikvah in the current spot, like currently in their building? Is this like the
No,
second mikvah,
no.
or this is it?
no,
Okay.
they don't have a mikvah yet, and that's why they're doing it. It's the
Okay.
same like they don't list every single room in the they don't list the coffee room and the bathrooms and the hallways. It's just another part of the shul. We consider this as part of the of the house of worship.
And I agree with that, and I'm sure it's a necessity, but the code specifically only mentions mikvahs in neighborhoods and freestanding houses of worship. It doesn't mention them at all in residential houses of worship. I have another
Which,
question while we're
and
looking
just not
into
to-
this.
Not to be, but like the code though, are we referring to, and I'm not, but which code are we referring to?
The one that we currently follow, which is the 1997, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
2007.
2007, sorry. The other question I have is, we have 9 parking spaces. and the mikveh has 5 showers. So I understand that we're saying that it doesn't, the parking is sufficient but if the capability of the mikveh is to have 5 people shower at the same time, how many parking spaces are going to be used?
This is again being used by the people that come to the shul. We're expecting more than 5 people at a time.
Okay, but you only have 9 parking spaces. That's more than half your capacity is in the mikveh at any given moment.
But the
No, but what he's
shul-
saying is it's the same people.
exactly. No people from nobody's coming there just for the mikveh and leaving. Every shul has a mikveh, but this one. So if someone comes, if the 9 spaces are sufficient now to operate as a house of worship and have a minimum of 10 people, because that's what you need to have to do the services,
And
then people are going to go to the mikveh, and we're not expecting more cars to come.
And I
the
understand
mikveh.
that, and all I'm questioning is the fact that we have 5 showers but 9 parking spaces. We're obviously anticipating a minimum of 5 people at a time in there, but we only have 9 parking spaces.
Yes, we're expecting more
the
than 5
point
people in the
is-
shul.
Yeah, exactly. They go from the shul. Let's say they're, full minyan. There are 10 men there.
Right.
5 of them go at a time to the mikveh. That would
Okay.
only leave 5 people in the house of worship and 5 people in the mikveh. It doesn't add. Am I missing something?
Nope.
Exactly.
And that's I have another question. If 10 people is a minyan, why do we only have 9 parking spaces?
Because it's a neighborhood, it's a residential neighborhood shul. People walk to this place. There are humongous shuls in the neighborhood. People that drive cars can go to places that can hold 1,000 people, and they can have a minyan every 15 minutes. They wouldn't come to this place. This place is for the neighborhood, people that walk to shul. And yeah, you need parking because you're always going to have some people come with a car, and the code requires you to have parking, even if everybody would walk to shul.
Comment.
Yes.
Would you have a problem if we had a map note making it, first of all, on the map itself, rather than proposed addition, I think we ought to be a little more clear as to what the addition is for. And that could also relate to my suggestion that we add a map note that that it's a private mikveh for congregant use only.
That's fine.
Because at least that way we could justify that whole issue that Lou's concerned about.
Well,
I think.
I'm not concerned whether it's private or public, and it's obviously public because it has a
No,
money
I'm
machine and an electric door.
I'm talking about the number of, to calculate the
And
number
honestly,
of parking
if I
spaces.
did the original approval, I would have asked why there was only 9 parking spaces when 10 is in a minyan.
No.
I can't imagine that every residential place of worship has at least 10 parking spaces.
Absolutely not.
No, they don't.
And right. And can this be like discussed at the zoning board? I mean, we're asking a variance, obviously. So we can
Well,
we
the
can explain.
question
We can have.
is,
Well, you're
Alright.
actually
Sure,
asking,
comment.
I
How
think
we
you're
can do-
asking for a waiver. I don't even think you don't have to go
no,
to the
we're
zoning
gonna
board.
need, well, I think we need a variance because now, from my calculation, we were coming out that I would only have 9 out of 15, so I'd only be like 60% compliant instead of 9 out of 11. But my question is that can I specify that can I use the original parking approval and only ask for the parking for the new piece? even though now, if this was a new application, the parking for the house of worship would be calculated differently.
Yeah, and it'll be less because you're only calculating the worship area, correct?
No,
No.
it will
If
not
I,
be
if
less because
I recalculate it for Lou, what Lou was saying, the number is gonna skyrocket because you could fit way more people in
I
200
see, I
square
see.
feet
I see.
than,
But I think we should leave this discussion for the board when we can have people from the congregation testify what's going on there, how many people use parking, how the function of the shul is. I mean, I'm sure the board is gonna ask these questions and we'll be prepared to answer them.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is, Kalman? If it doesn't go your way, you're gonna be back. You're gonna have to revise your application. It's gonna have to be re-advertised. It's gonna have to be sent out to all the other involved agencies, and it could delay.
I understand that, but it's not like we have a different choice. We don't have a choice of adding more spaces. This is it. Then there's an existing house of worship. The layout is done. They want to mikveh because they need one.
How's it functioning? How's it functioning now?
How it's functioning?
Yeah,
I mean,
is it functioning well with the 9 parking spaces?
Exactly. It's functioning amazingly. As I said, this is a neighborhood house of worship. I wouldn't daven there unless I live on that block and I'm lazy to take out my car in the morning. Otherwise, I would just drive. If I sit in my car, I'll drive to the bigger shuls in town. So 99% of people walk because they live across the street, they live next door, they want to just walk over to shul in the morning, and that's it. And it's been functioning for years, and everybody's happy. That's what I'm saying. It's not like we're designing a new project where we're trying to see if this makes sense. It's there, it's functioning. All they need is a mikveh, so they don't have to go somewhere else and then come to daven. They can have everything in the same place. That's all they're asking for.
Dan, this is a question for you. Since the original approval was based on the 200 square foot instead of the 200 or the three seats, 1 parking space for 3 seats, can we continue with the addition based on the same calculation?
Well, didn't you mention we have to look at what the code was back then?
I would like to see what date it went into effect, but that's only going to tell us that the original approval was miscalculated. I really don't want to make this a bigger issue than I need to. I mean, if the original calculation.
But there may be something that we're not aware of in that original code provision, and that it's plausible that the calculation was done right, dependent upon how that provision was written at the time of the approval. I mean, based on what I'm hearing, you're seeming to say that it wasn't just miscalculated, it was miscalculated to a degree that's almost comical.
Okay.
I mean, just a rough number. Aren't you saying you think it should be 30 spaces?
If the residential house of worship is 1,500 square feet, that's 100 people, according to the fire code. So
Well,
the residential house of worship.
But then does that also trigger this whole sprinkler system?
Anything more than 49 people triggers the sprinkler system and the alarm system.
So was that ever looked into?
I don't know. I wasn't here when the original thing was done. 735, anything bigger than 735 square feet triggers an alarm system and sprinkler.
So isn't that something we should also be talking about?
but they already have an approval that's signed off. Do you want to open that can of worms and start taking that apart?
I'm more concerned about the health, safety, and welfare issues than I am.
So am I.
Don't they, Lou, don't they do like a yearly fire inspection? It's a commercial space. And the place has been up for 11 years now.
Right?
Yeah, no, I'm asking, I mean, I'm sure the place is being inspected. We're not,
I
We're
could
not-
check
we're
and
not
see the last
questioning
time it was
that.
inspected if you'd like.
sure. And regarding the number of congregants, doesn't the applicant, I'm just asking because I don't know, doesn't the applicant provide the number? I mean, is it based on the
It's
parking
based on the
calculation?
footage of the room.
So he can't just say I have 50 congregants. It's based on the size of his room.
Correct. He could have a room that's 1,000 square feet and say he only has 2 congregants. Would that work?
No,
All right.
but 100 is a lot. I don't know if 100 people actually. And again, it's an existing place. Shouldn't we go what's there now? I mean, what's happening on a daily basis?
It hasn't been inspected in 2 years, and I show no inspections prior to 2020.
So can you see what the last inspection shows? I mean, is there a sprinkler system? Is it functioning? Is it working?
So the only inspection was 2 years ago since inception, Lou?
I actually have no fire inspection. I have an alarm inspection in 2019 and a third-party fire alarm inspection in 2021.
On
But
third-party
no-
alarm inspection?
J&S Security, an alarm inspection at the Airmont Shul.
What type of alarm?
Let's see what we got. We got panel location, radio. It's got a fire alarm to 44 control. I'm not showing any sprinkler though. It doesn't have a flow meter. No exterior strobes, no water switches. It has no sprinkler.
Calvin, do you ever have 50 congregants? Ever?
No, I have no idea. I don't know the answer to that because I've never davened in that shul in my life. So I wouldn't know. I mean, I can get back to you on those. I have no idea. And I wasn't involved in the original approval. All I'm involved in is now in adding this mikveh. So I don't know. I have no idea.
When Lipa had that shul, it was pretty popular. It was pretty packed.
Yeah, it's not. It was sold to someone else, and
I know.
it's a totally different environment now. It's totally different people, and it's a different.
I could tell you, I
and
was
I
there
don't-
last Friday morning. There was 5 cars in the parking lot at about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning.
No, okay, that makes sense. I can try to ask now as we speak. The one of the people in the show, my contact person.
Okay, so Lou, you'll check out what the parking provision was when this was approved. Sprinkler system. How does it work under the state fire code? Is it if you have the space for 49 or more people that you must have it sprinklered? Or is it that if you have the space for more than 49 people and you're actually using it for more than 49 people, that there's a distinction that requires you to put in the sprinkler system? How's that work?
That's a good question. It's usually based on the occupancy number for the area.
I mean, I could swear we've had applications where the argument was made, yes, we could fit, the 49 and above, but that's not going to be our congregation. We're only gonna have 30, we're only gonna have 25. And I don't know if we made them put in sprinklers.
I could tell you there's an approved congregation right now that told us they were gonna have less than 49, so they didn't put in sprinklers. And they have 2 yards paved, and I saw 50 cars in front of it on Friday morning.
So
So
that's not good.
yeah, well, because they told us it was gonna be less than 49.
And then the other argument is at congregations grow.
Sure.
The intention may be to only have 30, but over time, more family members, more families, and the room is there. And there doesn't seem to be a mechanism for compelling them to put in a sprinkler system after the fact.
Or to add parking after the fact.
The sprinkler seems worse than the parking, because parking, worst case, they're parked on the road. It's not like it's like the fire stuff is safety.
I agree.
Except that parking in the road in the case that I was just talking about, they parked on both sides of the road and school buses couldn't pass, nor could ambulances.
Oh,
So if parking was a big issue, it still is over there.
I believe, was there ever an issue at this location? I mean, we're having an existing shul here, and all we're doing is adding a mikveh. We're not building a shul here, so I don't think this should be the same
I'm
case.
not saying that it should, but this person is only a shul for what, a year or two?
He's owning it for 2 years, I think. Yes.
So as the popularity grows, his membership may grow.
I mean, if he grows, then he has to come back for a site plan approval regardless. It doesn't have to do with the mikveh. If he adds more congregants, everything is going to change. But we're talking about this little addition.
I think it goes a little bit beyond that. I think the issue is if it can hold 49 or more people right now, does that require a sprinkler system? Regardless of the fact, or regardless of whether or not 49 or more people are actually attending at this point. Lou, do you know who you'd call to find an answer to that?
State Fire.
Okay.
Speaking of fire, Tallman Fire Department submitted a letter that I sent to everybody, and they're not pleased with the reduction in parking, for the record.
How creative can you get, Rachel?
well, to get to the 11, I just looked at the Google Street View. It was called out. I guess originally they only had a 1-car garage in the house. It's showing 2, and I'm gonna have to check, but the Google Street View looks like they have a 2-car garage. So I need to find out if it's actually a 2-car garage or if like one of the spots was converted to something.
Or both.
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
But if there's actually a 2-car garage, that handles the 2 spots for the house. the driveway looks big enough that it looks like we have at least 2 in the driveway, but maybe we could kind of configure like a pull off or something and maybe get 1
4.
or 2 more.
Rachel, last I was
Because
there.
we would use the
it's still a
argument that the rabbi could always, he could be blocked in the garage because he could always have the congregants move if he needed to. It's not like it's not blocking in someone that he doesn't have access to. Would you be okay with that, Lou? I mean, I know it's not
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
ideal.
fine with that.
Okay. I know it's not ideal, but it's
And the rabbi doesn't have a car. I know him personally.
okay. Yeah, that's what
I
I've
don't
been
know if that
finding is a
helps.
lot of the rabbis, they get
No,
people
he
driving
doesn't.
around,
He
but
doesn't have a car. And last I was there, the garage is still a garage. I was there when I started this application. I walked
Okay.
through the building, and it's still a garage.
Both bays or just one?
Both.
Because one
Okay.
looks short.
No. Nothing has been changed from the inside. I went from the inside. It's a garage.
yeah, because if you look on the Google Street View, it shows just like a regular 2-car garage. And then the driveway is wide enough that it's at least the 2 wide. So that picks up 1 space right off the bat. And I could probably, I mean, even though there's like some landscaping there, we could probably try to like pull one off, pull some off on the side just instead and see what that would do. It'll affect our development coverage, but we're already
Oh, way over.
requesting a variance for it anyways. But then the same thing, I mean, at least we could explain that, yes, we're asking for a variance for this additional coverage. This is an increase in part from the parking spaces, but this addresses a concern of fire department and, consultants, whatever. There's like it's a helpful
Yep.
development coverage.
Can I ask one more question? When we get the actual architecturals here, can we actually have doors and measurements on there? Because I'm looking at accessibility issues for the family room shul and the entrance from the existing house into the shul area. The room has no doors on it. So unless it's a magic trick, I don't know how people get in and out or around that. So I'd like to see where we have for what we have for exits and where things are going.
Okay. It's fine.
And I'd also like to see some measurements on some of the rooms because there's no measurements on any of them right now except for the addition.
I guess they were focusing on the addition because they're not doing anything in the shul, but it can be added. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
All right. Anything from Val or the engineer?
No, I don't have anything at this point in time. I think it's just really just confirming, I know we talked about the zoning regulations. Now it's the 1990 or the 2007 zoning regulations, plus there's some additional tweaks based upon that court order. So I just think that we just need to make sure that the zoning table and the bulk table reflects everything in those in the prior zoning, that's all, which it seems to at this point in time, except for the parking. I'll leave that to Lou and Dan through that
And
one.
the sprinklers.
And the sprinklers. So I don't really have anything else at this point.
So, and I guess I'll take over we did receive revised plans, which we reviewed, and we had a few remaining comments. So I'll go over them very quickly. I'd like to come back to comment 1 because there's been a lot of discussion on parking. So that comment may not apply the way it is worded, but certainly on comment 2, we're still asking for Some infiltration testing calculations were provided, but we do ask that that be done, and I think that's in the works on the engineer's part, so hopefully we'll have that. We also asked for the language of the variances that were granted, I believe, to be included on the site plan. And then comment 4, we're noting that based on the numbers that were given to us by the engineer, that there does not seem to be a significant amount of water usage. So we don't really have an issue, but we still need, I think, a Rockland County Sewer District review to take a look at it, and I don't know if we received anything from them yet.
Jonathan, just so you know, I don't get plans out till they go to planning board. Till they submit for planning, that we don't send out for agency reviews.
Okay,
I don't know
So-
if it's different in some of your other villages
okay,
and
gotcha.
towns, but that's when I send it out. It's not until they go to planning.
okay. I just got it in there so it doesn't slip through the cracks.
Yeah,
that's
no,
all.
I'll make sure I send it to them once they submit for planning though.
All right, and comment 5, just a note indicating that they meet ADA handicap requirements. I believe there's a handicap space on there, but it doesn't really show elevations and grades to get in the building. So maybe just a note that says that, you know, a handicapped person can physically make it into the building would suffice. And comment 7, they did move the stabilized construction entrance, but it still looks to us that you can't actually get a construction vehicle behind the building to build the mikveh. It really almost has to be on the other street, on Murray Street. It's temporary, it'll be removed, but I think that's the only way that you can actually get a construction vehicle, like a excavator, a bulldozer, whatever type of equipment actually back there. So we ask you to take a look at that. And then the last comment number 1, I guess we're talking about now submitting for a variance for parking spaces. So that comment may not apply, but the one comment I did want to make was this particular site may be a little different because based on what I'm hearing, it does appear that a very significant number of patrons, people who come to the house of worship, do come by pedestrians, by walking. So I don't know legally if there's a way a note can be placed on plans restricting the actual number of people who attend by car versus by pedestrian, because if in fact it's true that 80 or 90% come by walking, well, that definitely does make a significant difference as to whether or not you're going to have serious traffic problems on this particular site. So that's something that the board may want to consider. That's all we have.
So do you want these changes made and come back to CDRC? Is that what you're all requesting?
I mean, the biggest issue here clearly is the issue of parking. So I guess I would defer to the board, or I mean, I don't really have a problem with it, except we don't really know where we stand with regards to parking. So I'm not 100% sure.
Dan?
I don't know how we have a choice. I don't think Rachel would disagree either,
Okay, so back to CDRC.
but I'll give Rachel
Suzanne.
an opportunity to disagree.
Yeah, Suzanne, let me just ask, for coming back to CDRC, can we already put them on a tentative schedule for the planning board? They've been waiting so long. And we were at CDRC a couple weeks ago, and you know, we just want to move ahead.
Well, the CDRC in January would be January 11th, and that submission is the 22nd. The planning board meeting is January 27th, and I will tell you, I already have 1 submission, 2 deferrals, and I think there's going to be a 3rd deferral.
You're gonna get probably another one from me.
Okay,
194 finally.
Well, yeah, so I mean, that's what I mean. They're one of the
Okay,
deferred.
because I 124 is on already. and
Yeah,
then
so we have
194.
124,
Okay.
we're gonna have 194. I have a feeling we're gonna have tonight's zoning application defer to January. And I have another one, trying to think. So I don't even know if you get to be heard, Colin, I'm just telling you, I'm being honest with you.
Okay, so what's the submission deadline for the January 11th CDRC?
January 11 CDRC is December 22nd. The planning board on January 27th, the deadline is the 21st because I got to send out at least 30 days in advance for comments, and I'm not in the last week of December. So that's why I'm out as of the 23rd. So it's got to be out in the mail so we get comments before the 27th of January if you did planning. If
So
you
where
did,
does that put us in February?
yeah, the February 24th planning board meeting, the submission would be January 20th.
January 20th, okay.
Yes.
And that was February, what was the date? Sorry.
February 24th. Planning board is always the fourth Thursday of the month. And the submission's like 4.5 weeks prior.
So for the February 22nd planning board, the submission date would be
February
January.
24th planning board. And January 20th is the deadline.
Deadline, okay. All right, I guess let's see what we can do.
And just so you know, I don't know what's happening to remote meetings after January 15th. We might be in person. Unless it's
Okay.
extended. I just wanted to point that out. I don't know what's going on.
Okay,
If remote is an option, you will think that you will stay remote,
I know, but
Okay.
especially,
depending on the governor.
they haven't sent any legislation out that I've seen unless Dan knows or Valerie knows something.
No, I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
I've been asking everyone and no one's seen any or heard anything. But now,
My guess is you won't find out like the 14th.
right, so when I
Well,
notice for anybody
But
for
no,
January, I'm
if
gonna have to
Cuomo,
say either
if
or.
Cuomo were there, we'd be lucky if we found out the day it expired.
That's very true, Dan.
Or the day after. I think she'll be a little different.
My gut is that it'll be extended, especially what's going on and with the mask mandate, et cetera. That's
That'd be
my,
my guess.
but I don't know.
I'll hope. Okay, so I mean, I guess my biggest question is if Lou and Dan, if you could figure out as far as which parking calculation we go with, but I will in the meantime try to make it more specific on my plan as to like how we're breaking it down. But
And then don't forget the map note things that we wanted.
Okay.
okay. Okay. Yeah, that it's a private mikvah or private mikvah for congregate use only.
Correct. And then the breakdown of the calculation.
Yeah, so I'll try to make that clearer.
More clear.
Okay.
Okay. That I should be able to
Now-
do.
I only have one request. Don't put the word private in there.
What word?
Okay, because I was thinking that, because if it's a
Congregate use
private
only.
mikvah, it makes it kind of seem like it's only for the house.
Right, private
So
is
it's a mikvah only for the use of the congregants, and I'll
only
just leave it
because
at
that
that.
mikvah has an electric door and a cash machine. So
I mean, it's public, it's just not, people aren't coming in
congregate
off the
use only.
street to go to the mikvah.
right,
It's
for
not like the
congregate-
women's mikvah that's like
correct.
the destination. People
Right.
don't come here to go to the mikvah.
I would just leave it for congregate use only.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Calman, anything on your end that we didn't cover?
I think we did, but I'm confused because we're going
Don't
in
worry about it.
circles.
That makes two of us.
Yeah,
Well, I wouldn't
no,
say we're going in
basically going.
circles. I think
We had
we're trying to figure out legitimate health, safety, and welfare questions. Last time we spoke, the big issue was, can you have this external secondary accessory use? I don't know that we're completely beyond that, but my thoughts are, you know, if this was a hot tub, that would be a accessory use to a single family house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here, the mikvah is a religious accessory use to the religious aspect of the house of worship.
Right. I guess let's see how it goes, and I guess we'll be back with our revisions.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right, have a
All
good
right.
day, everybody. I'll
Before you hang up, Suzanne,
Yeah, let me just stop the recording.
Yep.
Okay, hold on.